Hi, I'm Tiki Twoflower, and welcome to Cosplay Tips with Tiki. So, some way or another, you've become a sewing machine owner. What in the world do you do with this sewing machine in order to sew with it? I'm going to show you today. So when your sewing machine comes out of the box, it's probably going to look something like this. You will have your machine. You will have probably a box with a bunch of stuff in it. I will show you what some of that stuff is. The first thing we need to do is actually plug the sewing machine in. Sometimes the power cord and the foot pedal are one piece. On my sewing machine, it's two pieces. So you need to find out where these go. And your foot pedal is for your foot. So it goes on the floor. And then you can turn your sewing machine on. So this sewing machine has a needle already in it. But I do want to note you can change your needle. Usually there's a knob that you can unscrew. And screw back in to tighten. There are different thicknesses of needles if you're using a thicker fabric or a thinner fabric. So that's something to keep in mind. I actually already have a set of different needles with my sewing machine, but it didn't come with my sewing machine. I had to buy these needles. Something else that you need to buy is thread. Thread is not going to come with your sewing machine, but your sewing machine may or may not come with these little clear doodads called bobbins. If your sewing machine doesn't have these, you do need to go out and buy them. These are for the bottom side of your sewing. So the first thing you need to do when you start a sewing project is to get thread onto your bobbin. My machine also has a little thing to keep my thread on the top here. And how to make the bobbin is going to vary machine to machine. Hopefully you have the user manual. So you're going to thread through the part where you want to put your bobbin. And then you're going to pull the thread through the bobbin. Put it on the holder, slide it over. Some machines you might have to adjust a setting before you make the bobbin. On my machine, all I'm going to do is use my foot to push down on the foot pedal, and I'm going to hold on to this thread, and you'll see when I put enough tension on it, it's actually just going to break off. Okay. Now the reason that I was able to tell to stop the bobbin is I could hear the thread pushing against this little bit here that's meant to stop you from overfilling your bobbin. So my next step is to thread the machine and also put on the presser foot. You're going to get a bunch of these different things in here, and they serve different purposes. There are ones for buttonholes, there are ones for blind hems. These are all sort of a little bit more advanced, so we're going to go with something simple today, and we're going to use the standard presser foot. And there's a little place for it, and there's going to be a little lever at the back of your sewing machine that raises the presser foot up and down when it's actually clicked in there. So let me get it in the right spot. It clicks in, and there it goes. The reason it's called the presser foot is because it presses down on the fabric and holds it in place while you're sewing. Now this little piece slides on and off here. If you need to get something wrapped around the sewing machine, like a sleeve, you want to take this bit off. If not, you can leave it on. So most sewing machines actually have little lines on them that show you exactly what to do with your thread. There's also a wheel on the side that controls the needle. So I'm just following these arrows with my thread and then hooking it down here. Now when we get to this point, there's a couple of different options and a couple of differences in the machines. You may have an automatic threader like I do. Mine doesn't work very well, so I just stick my thread right through the hole in the head of the needle. And now that's set. So next we need to put in the bobbin. Like I said, the thread is the top stitching and the bobbin is the bottom stitching. And look, there is a cool little diagram on my machine that shows me how to put the bobbin in. Again, this is gonna vary a bit machine to machine. So I know to pull my thread down, wrap it around. Then I put the cover back on. And now I'm gonna grab back onto my top thread and I'm gonna use that wheel on the side to have my needle go down, and it's gonna pick up the bobbin thread and pull it right through here. So now my sewing machine is set up and ready to go. I'm pulling these threads out of the way so they don't get caught here. Now, I've already taken some fabric and pinned it together at the side. My sewing machine has a lot of different stitches, but I'm just going to show you two today, the two that you will need for any project. And the first is just a straight stitch. I'm going to use the default settings on my sewing machine. This one gives us the width of the stitch and this one gives us the length of the stitch. But I'm happy with where this is. So when you start to sew something, you'll notice that there are some lines on the sewing machine here that are different lengths from the edge of your fabric. If I put this fabric along this line here, it makes it 5/8 of an inch away from the edge, which is a standard seam allowance. So I'm putting my fabric here so that it's about under my needle, and I'm going to use the presser foot to control the needle here. So the first thing I want to do is just make a few stitches forward. And then I'm going to do what is called a back stitch. On my sewing machine, there's a button that does back stitch. So I'm going to hit that button. And you'll notice the thread went backwards this time. This secures the thread in place and keeps it from fraying. So I'll finish up this straight stitch. And notice I don't really have to touch the fabric. I just have to kind of keep it in place. The sewing machine will pull the fabric through for you. So don't pull or yank on the fabric as it's going. Just kind of keep it straight along the line here. You'll notice I'm sewing right over these pins. You can do that with straight pins that don't have a big head on them. Sometimes they might get bent or broken, but they're cheap, so you can throw them out. Now I've come to the edge of my fabric, so I do the same thing I did at the other edge. I backstitch just a few stitches and then forward stitch. And I pull up the presser foot. And what do I do with this? Well, most sewing machines have a nifty little part here that allows you to simply cut the thread. So there we have a nice straight stitch. But I want to show you one more stitch, which is useful for when you have an edge like this that might fray, and that is a zigzag stitch. Now you need to use this kind of presser foot for a zigzag stitch. I'm going to use the arrow on my sewing machine to go up to number 3, which is a zigzag stitch. And again, I have a width and a length that I can adjust. I'll show you guys what that looks like a little bit. So in this case, I want the edge of the fabric to be lined up with the edge of that little hole in my presser foot. And I'm going to start off the same way. I'm going to do a few stitches and then I'm going to back stitch and then stitch again. Now I'm just going to adjust the length and the width so you guys can see what a difference that makes. And so now the edge will not fray so much, and you can see right here where I adjusted the length and the width. It's a little smaller here, it's a little bigger here. So when you're all done, I do recommend taking all your pieces out and putting them away to keep things from getting dusty and to stay organized. But that's about it when it comes to sewing machine basics. So that's how to do some basic stitching with your sewing machine. Hopefully you can play around a little bit and actually sew some garments. Be sure to subscribe for more videos and check out the videos that we have already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.